Welcome to Saint of the Day for January 28th, the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Thomas Aquinas shows us what happens when intelligence becomes an offering and truth becomes worship. Thomas was born into a noble family in Italy, and his family had big worldly plans for him, but God had a different idea. Thomas joined the Dominican order, which meant a life of poverty, prayer, and preaching. That decision brought real resistance. Church tradition tells us his own family had him seized and held in confinement, hoping he would abandon his vocation. They tried to break his resolve, and even tried to tempt him by sending him a woman to seduce him. But Thomas drove her away and prayed for purity. That is where holiness often begins, not with comfort, but with a clear yes to God despite the cost. In time, Thomas studied under St. Albert the Great and became one of the greatest teachers in the history of the Church. His most famous work, the Summa Theologiae, helped form generations of Catholics because it explains the faith with clarity, order, and fidelity. He showed the world that faith and reason are not enemies, because the truth cannot contradict itself, because God is the source of all truth. His work still helps Catholics speak about God with confidence and humility. But the most surprising thing about St. Thomas is not how much he knew. It is how deeply he worshipped. We also remember him because he gave us some of the most beloved Eucharistic hymns for Corpus Christi. His theology was never meant to end in a library, but was meant to lead souls to the altar. There is a famous story that one day after Thomas had been writing about Christ, the crucifix spoke to him and asked what reward he desired. Thomas answered with the desire every Christian must learn to mean, Domine non nisi te, which means none but you, Lord. Near the end of his life, after a profound moment at Mass, Thomas stopped writing altogether and said, "All that I have written seems like straw to me." That was him recognizing that even the best words are nothing compared to the living God, the God who comes to us in the Eucharist. So what does St. Thomas Aquinas teach us today? He teaches that the mind is meant for God. He teaches that study becomes holy when it is done with humility. He teaches that purity is possible when temptation is faced with seriousness and grace. He teaches that truth is not for winning arguments, but for saving souls and leading people to worship Jesus Christ. Go to the Holy Manna blog to get the full story and learn more. St. Thomas Aquinas, pray for us. If you enjoyed the reflection for the Saint of the Day, please help us spread the message by reposting or sharing. Thank you and have a blessed day.